Welcome to my review of AP Art History Unit 8. So let's get started. So this first thing is called the David Vases. And so these David Vases were made with this little white stuff, which is like clay, and specifically porcelain white clay, because that's what they had access to in China during the Yuan dynasty. So this is And they had cobalt blue underglaze, which is what this little blue stuff is. And so that's how it was made, is with cobalt and clay. And this is during the Yuan dynasty in China in 1351 CE. And then it was it was kind of a cross-cultural thing, as it was China during the Mongol time. That is the context of these vases. It was during the Mongol rule of China, and it was an offering to the Taoist temple in honor of deceased generals who had basically been promoted to a god. And so this was kind of a Taoist influence type of thing. And it was also the earliest known blue and white design on a Chinese vase, which is pretty cool. The blue came from the Silk Road, which was basically from Iran. All right, so next I'm going to talk about the form. And so it was about a bit over 2 feet, so it was relatively tall. And they have these little flared rims here, so this rim kind of goes outwards from the actual vase itself, and the neck kind of curves inwards. So these were decorated with little things. You can see this little dragon here. I think there's some phoenixes. Yep, there's a phoenix and just other little symbols on here. So they're just decorated. The content is very similar. There's just intricate designs on here, such as the phoenixes and other mythical creatures, some flowers, some patterns. And these were probably some kind of symbolic thing for the Chinese people, for whatever they were made for, or whoever they were like offering it to. So we don't really know what exactly they mean, but they probably had some symbolic significance there. All right, so now we're going to go to Sin Sukju. So the artist for this is it's technically an artist, but it's a bit weird. It is the Imperial Bureau of Painting, and so that is technically the artist. It's some dude from there. That's what we know. And so this was during the 15th century, and it is hanging scroll and ink on silk. What is the material there? So this is a relatively high value painting, just kind of not necessarily because of the dude or whatever, but silk was kind of the big thing for Asia. And so they this is what they traded on the Silk Roads. And so because of the Silk Roads, the popularity of just silk was just skyrocketing in Asia. And so there was a very high demand for this material. And so the form is, again, full-length portrait of this guy. So it's not just his head or like his feet or something like some weird people. But it's also not necessarily a frontal view. You can see this ear, but not this ear over here. So it's actually a three-quarters view. And these lines are relatively angular. Um, the function of this scroll is not just to flex on other people that they had silk. Other, though that would be pretty cool just to make a whole portrait of a dude just to flex that he had silk. But it was to demonstrate the accomplishments of this court member and eventual prime minister. And so this guy who made this was kind of pledging his loyalty and demonstrating how much he kind of loved this guy and that he deserves this much respect that he gets this painting of with such high value material on this with the silk. And so he's kind of demonstrating that he deserves very much higher this Sin Sukju guy deserves respect. And then the content that depicts him as an honored dude, right? And he has this little peacocks on his shirt or like tunic thing, which kind of demonstrates his high ranking. And you can see that does not have his feet on the ground down here, which kind of elevates him, giving him more sense of uh, wisdom and dignity. Also by his kind of wrinkles. Again, old people are wise, and so this kind of this very solemn expression, they think this is a very wise guy. And then the context for this painting is he is a scholar and a politician that rose to the status of minister in 1445, I believe. And so this also was during the time of Confucianism, which is the emphasis on respect for your elders and ancestors. And so this is kind of what this is. They are showing respect for this Sin Sukju guy. I also forgot to mention that this was in Korea, and the Korean belief during this time was that the face reveals important clues to the subject. So the wrinkles and kind of seldom look make him make the people in that society believe that he is a very wise person. All right, keeping with the theme of the location being Korea, next up is the Gold and Jade Crown. So this, like the other portrait, is made in Korea. And this was made quite long before the portrait. This was during the 5th and 6th century. And so the material here is obviously kind of some metal. And because it is a gold and jade crown, the material is obviously gold and jade. So there's some metal and then some gold and jade, of course. And so it kind of has this tree shape. They have these little like natural things. And so the idea is it's supposed to resemble the tree of life and kind of reference to the world tree, which is basically an axis mundi, which would con connect the heavens, which is kind of pointing up to the heavens. When you see things kind of pointing up to the like pointing up, it's generally pointing up to the heavens, and these little things are connecting down, so you kind of connect the heavens and the earth there is what this is trying to symbolize. And so the jade is kind of the fruit and the fertility and kind of growth and prosperity, that sort of thing. So because this is a crown made of this fancy like metals, this gold, which is really rare. This is for very high ranking people. So this was generally with burial mounds, like many things from art history. It's it's generally placed in burial mounds when very royal members of the family died. Uh, and it was sometimes worn when high-ranking people needed to show their power and influence. Again, just kind of wearing gold and stuff, people are like, oh shoot, this guy has a lot of money, a lot of power, and people will probably listen to you. And so that's a very common theme throughout art history is just this wearing high or wearing certain things or certain features demonstrating very high ranking. And again, just gold is just very high ranking. And so a bit of the context here, Korea during this time was split into three kingdoms, and this crown was from the Silla Kingdom, which was about the southeast side of Korea. And so, and they have these little antler things right here were meant to be what they kind of represent the reindeer that were native to that area. All right, so that was a quick review of the Gold and Jade Crown, the Portrait of Sin Sukju, and the David Vases from AP Art History, Unit 8. If you want to see more of this unit or other units, let me know.